All right, going the other direction. Now we're going to take some rectangular equations and convert them back to polar. I keep saying polar, sorry, parametric equations. So we're asked to find a set of parametric equations to represent the graph of y equals 1 minus x squared using the following parameters. When we're asked, again, parametric equations, that means we're going to have one x equation and one y equation. So for the first one, we're actually already given the first of the parametric equations. We're given x equals t. Boom, one done. Now we got to take that. We're going to take in the t and plug it in for x in the other equation. So we had y equals 1 minus, instead of x squared, now we're going to do t squared. And that's our second parametric equation. So our two parametric equations, again, just putting them as one final answer, we got x equals t and y equals 1 minus t squared. For the second one, we have to do a little bit more work, but it's not a ton more. We're given x minus 1 equals t. Again, to go from a rectangular to a polar. I misspoke again, I'm sorry. To go from a parametric to a rectangular, we solved for both sides for t, but now we're going to go from the opposite direction. To go from a rectangular to a parametric, we got to solve for the variable first. So we're going to add 1 to both sides. So we have x equals t plus 1. There's one of our two parametric equations. Now to solve for the other equation, we're going to take y equals 1 minus x squared, but again, instead of x, now we're going to use t plus 1 squared. Again, we got that from up here. So we're plugging in t plus 1 in for the x. Now, we should go through and clean that up just a little bit so that it looks more similar to what we're used to for equations in general. We got 1 minus t plus 1 squared. Side note, t plus 1 squared is not equal to t squared plus 1. We don't just distribute the exponent to the individual terms. In order to do t plus 1 squared, we got to do t plus 1 times t plus 1. And we got to go through and distribute those values. So we got t times t. Let me just start writing this out. T times t is t squared. T times 1 is t. 1 times t, also t. 1 times 1 is 1. Now I'm putting that whole group in parentheses because it's 1 minus whatever the result of t plus 1 squared is. So now we have y equals 1 minus, and there's our current format for the result. T squared plus t plus t plus 1. Cleaning it up a little bit more, we got 1 minus, I'm just going to clean up what's in the parentheses there, combining like terms. We got two t's there, so we got t squared plus 2t plus 1. Now we are subtracting everything in that group. If it helps you to think about it this way. This is not how I typically go about it, but I know a lot of students and a lot of people go about it this way. A lot of people like to distribute that minus and rewrite it. So we have 1 minus t squared minus that 2t minus that last 1. Cleaning this up a little bit more, now we got some more like terms we can combine. We got a 1, we got a minus 1. Those are going to cancel each other out. So we're just left with y equals negative t squared minus 2t. So now we have our two separate equations. I'm going to put them as just one final answer. Our first equation was x equals t plus 1. And the final y equation we got was y equals negative t squared minus 2t. And there you have it.